Okay, so we're gonna wait a couple of minutes, maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, and to see if somebody else joins. Okay, so are you there, Sergio? Okay, there you are. Great. Sorry, I was muted. Okay, so we're gonna get started. Today we're gonna continue practicing we're gonna continue on the listening section and we'll be practicing TOEFL lectures, which is what we did yesterday. So remember, you have the lecture, you usually have a short introduction, and you need to try to pay attention and understand the organizational style of the lecture. So is it a classification? Is it a comparison? Is it advantages and disadvantages, theory and evidence? And based on that structure, you should be able to identify the subtopics in the lecture and take notes according to that, right? So we also saw that technique on how to take notes, and we're going to be practicing that today. Do you have maybe by any chance any questions before we start? Nope. Okay. So please get a piece of paper and a pen, and we listen to our first lecture. It says, listen to the audio recording and answer the questions. It's a university lecture on animal behavior by a professor of biology.
Listen to part of a university lecture on animal behavior by a professor of biology. We're looking at animal behavior this.
Okay. I think it would be better if I send you the link and you can listen to it your own pace. Okay, guys. So, are you guys done listening to the lecture? You join at different times. Maybe probably some of you are, some of you are not yet. Right? Okay, so we're gonna go to the questions then. Our first question, Sergio, could you please read the question?
Why does the lecture mention Charles Darwin?
So go to your notes or remember where and when Charles Darwin was mentioned. Was it a reference for what? An example for what? Take a look at your notes. What do you guys think? A, B, C, or D?
B.
Okay, Darwin's theory was used to explain mimicry. Okay, do you guys agree? Yes. Sergio, Gamaliel, do you guys agree?
I can see the screen.
Oh, I wasn't sharing.
No,
Now you can see.
yes.
So why does the theory mention Charles Darwin? B, to explain mimicry. Darwin's theory was used to explain mimicry.
The letter A, option 1.
Neither one was fair. Sergio, what about you? What do you think?
I think it's C.
See, Darwin explained mimicry for the first time. Okay. And Juslan, did you get to hear this part?
Yes, recently. I think that it is A.
A. Okay, so here's, there are some things here. So I think Darwin, obviously is indeed the creator of the evolutionary theory, right? That's true. But is that the reason why the professor mentioned Charles Darwin? Like, is he actually talking about the evolutionary theory? Is that the main topic or the main subtopic? I don't know where that word Darwin was mentioned. I think I'm gonna have to go or agree with you on this. And it will be, we look at the transcript. We have, okay, where is Charles Darwin? Okay, where is it?
At the fourth paragraph.
Fourth part. Okay, here. So it says this warning coloration is so effective. Okay, this sort of mimicry is called Bayesian mimicry. The name comes from early zoologist H.W. Bates, who back in 1862 first suggested an explanation for the origins of mimicry based on Charles Darwin's theory. Right. So this zoologist Bates suggested first an explanation for the origins of mimicry based on Charles Darwin's theory. So his theory was used to explain mimicry for the first time, right? But it wasn't to explain something about the evolutionary theory. That wasn't the main focus, right? The mimicry theory was based on Darwin's theory, and that's why Charles Darwin is mentioned. Because otherwise, why would they mention Charles Darwin? It has to be something related to the topic, right? And the topic here is mimicry. So it needs to have a relationship. Everything, remember that this is what we always say, right? Everything that's said in a paragraph, in a text, in a lecture, needs to be related to the topic. So in this case, the only reason why they would mention Charles Darwin is whether it could be to explain mimicry, or maybe it could be D as well, right? Darwin explained mimicry. I don't think that's very plausible. But in this case, it'll have to be B. Is that okay? Do you guys agree? All right, second question says, what is the term used for an organism that is fooled by mimicry. So how is this organism called? What do you guys say?
A.
A, the recipient? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, I think you guys are right. So the model was first of all, the mimic was the animal that does the mimicry, right? The model is the animal that they're trying to imitate. The recipient is the animal that they're trying to fool by this. Yes. Device and prey, they weren't matched. So we have model, recipient, and mimic, I think. Now question 3 says, why does the lecture mention katydids? What do you guys think? Why does the lecture mention katydids? I mean, if we're talking about an animal behavior, right? It's in the beginning, they say, listen to a lecture about an animal behavior. So we're talking about animals in specific mimicry. When they mention a specific animal, it's probably going to be an example of something. So katydids was an example of what?
Oh. Leaves.
Of leaves, because they look like leaves, okay? What type of mimicry is that one? When they look like something?
Camouflage.
Exactly, camouflage. So when they look like something, when they resemble another thing from the environment or another animal, that's camouflage, right? Now, interestingly enough, this question, you could answer it. I mean, you could eliminate some options already, right? Like option A, because they taste bad. I think that is related, but that's related to the other type of mimicry, right? When they resemble an animal that is maybe poisonous or like tastes bad. Because they resemble bumblebees, because they can sting. So they can sting is another type of mimicry as well. And if you know what katydids are, do you guys know what these are?
Grasshoppers.
Exactly. They are grasshoppers in Spanish, saltamontes, right? So if you have an idea of how they look, then you know that they don't really resemble bumblebees. There are other animals that are mentioned that do resemble bumblebees, but they do look like leaves, right? So it was mentioned in the beginning as an example of the first type of mimicry. Now question 4 says, some moths and butterflies have large, owl-like eye spots concealed on their underwings, which they can subtly display to a predator. Which kind of mimicry is this an example of? So moths and butterflies that have large, owl-like eye spots concealed on their underwings, which they can subtly display to a predator. Where are these animals mentioned?
I think is Bacteria.
Okay? Do you guys agree that it's A? we could eliminate camouflage, right? Because we know that camouflage is resembling another thing from your environment, right? That's camouflage. We can also discard maybe aggressive mimicry, because I think that's used by the predators, right? It's not by the prey, is it? So it will have to be A or C. Let's go with A. Do you guys agree? Yes? Let's pick A and let's see what happens. We're gonna see if it's correct. Now, question 5 says, which organism is presented as an example of Mullerian mimicry? So,
The orchid mantis.
the orchid mantis, okay? Yes, Sid? Sergio, you agree? Okay. Let's choose B. And finally, question 6 says, which would be the best title for this lecture? Finally, not a little question. So what do you guys think? Animal behavior, animal creativity, animal deception, animal escapades? What do you think? I mean, I don't think behavior, right? Because it's already the title. So it will be too easy for it to be A. Creativity, they're not really being creative, right? It's something on their nature. So deception or escapades, what do you think? Or I don't know, maybe you think that it's A or B. What would you guys say? Gamaliel, what do you think?
Animal creativity.
Okay, B. Wilder,
D.
B. Okay, yes, because I mean it's true that some of them are escaping from their predators, but there was one type of mimicry too that was done by the predator, right? So could be, I don't know. Juslan, did you get to hear it? Or what would you say about this question?
Oh, I will be for the behavior.
Animal behavior. And Sergio?
The last one.
We have 2 for D. We're gonna go with that one. Let's check. Okay, let's see.
So one question, when we were listening, we couldn't show the transcript.
You were listening, you couldn't, sorry?
So we weren't able to show the transcript. We couldn't read.
I mean, in this case you can, but in the actual test you won't be able to read the transcript.
Okay.
You just listen. Now question 1 is correct. So Darwin's theory was used to explain mimicry. That's the reason why Darwin was mentioned. Question 2 is also great. So the animal that receives the mimicry, the recipient, is the one that's fooled by it, right? They do look like leaves. Great, it was an example of Batesian mimicry. The orchid mantis was the example used for the Mullerian mimicry. And question number 6 will have to be animal deception. Okay, deception basically means fooling somebody or fooling someone or something in this case, right? So animal deception, it's like a way that you fool, in this case, another animal, right? So how animals fool other animals. That's the idea behind that animal deception. As I told you, I don't think animal behavior would be one because that is the actual title, right? So they're not going to include it in that as an answer. Animal creativity, as I told you, this isn't really about how creative they are because they're not really creating anything, right? This isn't about, for example, in like maybe in some cases they are, right? When they do certain things, like the butterfly, right? That displays their wings. But in most of the cases, it's just the way they are, right? For example, the katydid, they just look like leaves. They're not really doing anything. It's just the nature. And as we said about these, some animals are trying to escape their predators, but other animals are actually using this mimicry as a mechanism to catch their prey. So I think that's the reason why C would be the most appropriate. Hey guys? Okay, so far, do you have any questions about the one we just did? So honestly, the key part here was identifying that this was going to be a classification type of lecture because you had different types of mimicry. I think you had 4, right? So you needed to understand that it was classification. You needed to be able to separate the ideas for each type. So you have malaria mimicry, Bayesian mimicry, camouflage, and aggressive mimicry in each side of in different sides of your paper. And you needed to also understand that usually when you have classification, then you have examples, right? And I think we said this yesterday. Most of the time, if you have types, you have examples. Okay, guys, we're gonna do another one. This time I'm gonna play it for you. Please pay attention and also take notes.
To part of a lecture from a life sciences class. Raise your hand if you're right-handed. Yep, that looks typical. Most of us, about 90%, are right-handed. It's been that way throughout history. In nearly every culture, right has been associated with positive qualities, while the left has been associated with negative, or even evil ones. In Latin, left means sinister. In ancient Japan, men could reject or refuse to marry women who were left-handed. In modern China, teachers try to force left-handed students to learn to write with their right hands. And, as I'm sure all lefties know, everyday items like can openers, scissors, computer keyboards are designed for righties. In short, left-handers have been made to feel left out. Get it? It might seem straightforward to you and I, but scientifically speaking, the basis of handedness is not well understood. Most scientists define right-handed or left-handed on the basis of a person's preferred writing hand. But some scientists claim it should be based on the hand that is faster and more accurate in performing manual activities like tightening a screw or tying a knot. Still others claim that ability doesn't matter. In other words, that handedness should denote only preference. Yes, question.
What about people who are who use both hands?
You mean ambidextrous. Actually, most scientists agree that genuine ambidexterity is rare, and several of them believe it even rates its own special category as a distinct type of handedness. The reason for this is that most people can perform several functions relatively equal with either hand, which causes another scientific fraction to argue that there are actually only 2 types of handedness, right and non-right. This group advocates measuring handedness on a continuum, from 100% right-handed to 100% left-handed. On this scale, we'd say something like, I'm 60% right-handed, or I'm 82.5% right-handed. Though how we determine who's more right-handed than another would open up a whole new can of worms. Okay, yes.
How do people become right-handed or left-handed in the first place? Does it come from your genes?
Mostly, yes. Research shows that handedness is largely genetic. Interestingly, though, even when both parents are left-handed, the odds are no better than 50-50 that their children will be lefties. Some scientists believe there is a specific gene that determines right-handedness, but the trouble is that they can't pinpoint it. They think this gene also aids in development of speech and language comprehension. Many researchers believe that handedness is a result of something called brain lateralization, which is the concept that each hemisphere of the brain controls different bodily functions. Researchers have long been believed that a person's dominant hand is on the opposite side of the brain hemisphere that controls their language specialization, so that right-handed people use the left half of their brain for processing language. But brain lateralization is not well documented, and there is evidence that seems to contradict this concept. For instance, while it's true that more than 90% of right-handed people do process language in their left hemisphere, recent research shows that about 40% of left-handed people also process language primarily in the left side of their brain. Additionally, only 10% of lefties rely primarily on their right brain to process language. So, what can we make of this? Though genetics clearly play a vital role in determining handedness, environment also seems to be an important factor. A recent archaeological study compared a group of modern Canadians with 1,000-year-old skeletons from a British farming community. The Canadians showed right-handed dominance by a 9-to-1 ratio of larger right elbows than left ones. In the ancient skeletons, however, most right and left elbows were equal. Now, this doesn't prove that the British farmers were ambidextrous, but researchers say it does suggest that handedness can be subject to societal influence. So for many, the best hypothesis at this time is that handedness results from a complex interaction of nature and nurture.
Okay, guys. So before we start looking at the questions, what subtopics were you able to identify? This is about handedness, right? So what information does the professor give about handedness? What do they talk about specifically about it? So what would you guys say? What were you able to identify as the subtopics?
Culture thoughts about being right-handed.
Exactly. So the cultural implications, the cultural thoughts about being right-handed or left-handed. Yes, what else?
Different scientific theories.
Exactly. They talked about the origin, right? So how does somebody become right-handed or left-handed? And they talked about different theories that scientists sometimes agree on or disagree. And what else? Anything else you were able to catch?
Maybe the last one was the social influence, according to the recent studies.
Sorry, again?
Social influence, according to the latest studies.
Exactly. So yes, social influence too, because at the end they conclude that being right-handed or left-handed is not only determined by your biology and your genes, but it could also be something related to our environment. So something like resulted from social construct. So let's see. Let's look at the questions now. The first one says, what is the main topic of the lecture? What do you guys think? What would you say then?
Letter D.
Okay, the scientific basis of handedness. Good. What about the rest?
Yeah, let's say.
Letter C.
Sergio? Okay, just that.
Letter C.
Letter C,
Yes.
and then genetics. Okay, the rest of you guys
But-
said D, right? The scientific. Yes. Okay, so majority wins. Let's go for D. I think yes. Like honestly, I don't like I don't really have a preference. I think most of them wouldn't be like a correct topic of the lecture, because although the definition is mentioned, right-handed dominance is also mentioned, genetics is mentioned as well. Scientific basis of handedness, yes, would be maybe the one that like encompasses everything a little bit more, that includes everything a little bit more, because they talked about different studies. They do talk about the genetics part. They talk about the social part. So all of that could be, I guess, summarized to the scientific basis. Now, question 2 says, why does the professor mention Japan and China?
See?
Yes, letter C. Letter C.
Yes. But yeah, they do talk about this in the beginning, and they are examples of the prejudices that exist. Now, question 3 says, according to the professor, what is the problem with the concept of brain lateralization? What is the problem with this concept, brain lateralization?
Letter D or A.
Okay.
Oh, letter A.
Okay, that may be true, but is that a problem though? How's it related to brain lateralization? Or no? What about the rest? Wilder?
I think it's D.
Okay. Jusla?
Letter A.
Letter A2. And Sergio?
A2.
Okay, we'll go for A. I don't know, I'm not sure. Different parts of the brain controlling different body functions. Okay, what was this concept about? How's this related to handedness? Do you guys remember? I think it's like, since we have two sides of the brain, I think that some scientists used to believe that one I mean, that if you're like left-handed, then your right side is more developed, right, or something. And they were trying to see if that determined handedness or not. So I don't know if A would be the one. And also looking at these options, I would try to always, try to answer the question. So what is the problem with this? So if I look at the options, C and D are the ones that could be the one, that could be right for me, because both of them appear to be talking about a problem. It has been disproven, that could be a problem, or it does not seem to apply to determining handedness, because at the end of the day, this was a theory trying to explain what determines handedness, right? That was what this was about. So it could have been disproven, or maybe it doesn't apply. I think C couldn't be the one because the archaeological study has nothing to do with the biological part, right? The archaeological study, I think it was mentioned later when they were talking about how the environment and like the social part affects. So we're gonna see it. I don't know though, we'll see. Question 4 says, why does the professor say this? Get it? I think it was in the beginning, right? Maybe we can play that part again. I think we're supposed to hear it. It was at the end of the first, like maybe around here. Let's hear it.
Or even evil ones. In Latin, left means sinister. In ancient Japan, men could reject or refuse to marry women who were left-handed. In modern China, teachers try to force left-handed students to learn to write with their right hands. And, as I'm sure all lefties know, everyday items like can openers, scissors, computer keyboards are designed for righties. In short, left-handers have been made to feel left out. Get it?
Why does the professor say that?
Designed for righties. In short, left-handers have been made to feel left out. Get it?
Why is that?
What does spoon mean, teacher?
It's like a game of words. It's something that has meaning, but it's also related to the words you're saying. It's like, yeah, like playing with the words to create meaning. It could be as a form of a joke.
Letter B.
Yeah, right. So with that definition of that word, then yes, that's exactly what the professor did, right? Because he says, in short, left-handed people may feel left out, right? So the lefties feel left out. So there you have that game of words, right? You're using the word left and using it in two different contexts, right? So that is what the professor wanted to do, to see if the students, or to attract the students' attention towards that joke that he did. It wasn't anything related to an assignment. It wasn't to see if they can hear him or not. And D could be, right? But B is closer to the one. Now, question 5 says, in the lecture, the professor mentions problems scientists have in determining handedness. Indicate which of the following statements is true. All right, so which of the following statements is true? And it has to be related to the problems that scientists have in determining handedness.
A.
Okay, what are all the rest?
I um I, I think letter C.
92% of all people are generally ambidextrous. Ambidextrous. Okay, Sergio. Can I hear you, Sergio? What do you think?
I don't know, maybe A.
Okay. Gislan?
I think that is letter C.
Okay, you said C. And Gamaliel?
Excuse me.
Did you say C too?
Yes, C.
Okay. So, okay, majority wins. Let's go for C. But, thinking about it from a logical perspective, and just by understanding a little bit of the context, it says, the professor mentions problems scientists have in determining handedness, right? Indicate which of the following statements is true. This question seems a little bit oddly phrased, but basically what they're asking is what is true about why scientists have problems in determining handedness, right? So what's the reason why scientists have problems? I think that is what the question is really asking. Now, if we look at the options, like, I don't know how the fact that only 2% of all people are generally ambidextrous could be a problem, right? I don't know. Like, maybe this fact is true, not completely sure, but even if it were true, I don't know if it could be a problem or if it would mean a problem for scientists determining handedness. Now, option D, for example, same thing, right? If you think about it, this is probably not true, right? This is probably not true because there was a problem with this theory. So about 90% of left-handers process language in the left side or the left brains. That to me seems more like a way to solve the problem, right? That would answer the question on how you determine whether you're left-hander or not. Because if you process language in your left side of the brain, then you're definitely gonna be, or not definitely, right? But 90% of the time gonna be left-handed. So I don't think this is true. And if instead of seeing it as a problem, I could see it as a solution, right? That would really be helpful in determining what determines handedness. I don't know. Now, option B, same thing, right? If most scientists agree on something, I don't know if that would be a problem. But the fact that some scientists claim this and others claim that, there's an opposition in there, right? So I don't know. We'll see. So the first one was great. The topic of the lecture would be the scientific basis of handedness. The second one is perfect. Japan and China are mentioned as examples of handedness prejudices. Question 3 was we actually got it wrong. So the right answer would be D. It does not seem to apply to determining handedness, right? So this is kind of what we were saying, and this is very similar to the last question, right? What is the problem with this concept? So the only two problems could be C and D, right? But we said the archaeological study has nothing to do with the biological part or the, when you study genetics. So this was mentioned later. So you have to be D. Yeah, the professor does use this phrase to direct students' attention to the joke he did. And question number 5 would have to be A. So for those of you who said A, that was great. Sometimes scientists claim the only handedness is right and not right. So the other ones are not true. Okay? Maybe there's something like that was mentioned, but maybe we got the numbers wrong. Or maybe instead of most scientists, it's some scientists. Instead of only 2%, it's more than that. Who knows? Okay, so you should be paying attention to those details. They matter. So what do you guys think about this one here? We have 3 out of 5, I think. think, right? Yes, we are. What do you think?
It is complicated.
You guys, it's a little bit complicated, right? It is much more complicated than conversations, but I do feel that it's all about practice. I've seen some students that just by practicing a lot, like maybe one lecture a day, can get better. And obviously actively practicing, right? You need to see what you're not doing well and try to work with that. What is it that is making you not have the correct answers? So again, right, it could be your note taking, maybe you're not paying attention or enough attention to the details. Maybe you're taking too many notes and you're not paying attention to the content or the main ideas. Maybe you just don't have the vocabulary. Maybe it's too fast, the way they're speaking. Maybe it's too long and you get bored and you just pay attention to the first half and then you start getting distracted. So in that case, for example, what you should do is start listening to lectures, to shorter lectures, and then little by little increasing the level. It depends. Depends on what your problem is. Do you guys have any questions about what we did today? I already sent you this website. Please make sure that you practice. And you see what you have the transcripts here. So that's a good way to know why your answers were wrong, right? To know which part specifically talks about a certain question and what information you got wrong or what information you missed. Or even to review vocabulary, right? That's a good way. So, if you don't have questions, then please, as I'm calling attendance, I'm gonna ask you to please fill out today's survey. I just started it. So please, if you could answer those questions. Okay, guys. Thank you so much and see you all tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, I'll see you on Tuesday and we'll move on to the next part of the test. We'll start speaking section next class. See you guys on Thursday. Have a great weekend.
See you.
Bye, Miss.
I mean.
Nice.